Today's topic is something a touch different than what I usually do. Typically, I'll make you listen to me read somebody else's writings, or I'll over-explain a story to you for upwards of 20 minutes a pop. But today we're going to be looking at somebody who doesn't seem to fit into my normal content. Just hear me out. This one might interest you. Some weeks back, an image of an upstanding gentleman was posted to Twitter, or I guess it's X now, with the post stating that the individual looked cool and friendly. The comments that followed unraveled a phenomenon that had mostly been nestled away in the depths of another social media service. That individual is CyberSmith. He's a random guy who uses both Twitter and Tumblr. This is obviously not that uncommon because plenty of people have taken the plunge and wasted away countless hours on multiple clients. Before we get anywhere with him, I want to preface that this guy appears to be a bit of an anomaly. I can't exactly pinpoint if he is genuine or if he's some kind of troll. I can see evidence for both sides, but I have been unsuccessful in finding the smoking gun that determines his true placement. That being said, feel free to draw your own conclusion and please take everything with a grain of salt. I'm interested to read what you guys think. CyberSmith has a relatively unusual interest that he is very vocal about. He'll find ways to shoehorn it into a conversation, totally derailing the topic at hand, just so he can get his point across. What that point was at the time usually makes no sense and remains a mystery later. About 6 or so years ago, a post was made on Tumblr discussing the finer points of wearing a dog collar in public, mostly written as a joke, I would assume. It's kinda hard to tell these days. Either way, I could break it down right here and now, but I think it'd be more fun to read you a conversation that he completely annihilated with his remarkable literary prowess. Me wearing a dog collar and leash looking up at my man friend in his trench coat and fedora. Let's go out in public where you can walk me like I'm a dog in front of people who are visibly uncomfortable. It's not a flipping fedora, it's a bowler hat. Keep goobin', goober. A fedora is a fedora is a fedora. Anyway, with regards to the original post, what would actually be wrong with that? There's no mention of public nudity, nor treating the human pet in a way that would be considered strange for a dog. Should people be obliged to modify their behavior so the irrationally prejudicial do not experience discomfort? Irrationally prejudiced? Motherfucker, admit you have a pet play fetish. There's no shame in it on this website. Okay, just please consider the following scenario. It's 5 to 10 years from now. You're sitting in a restaurant, enjoying a lovely meal, when I walk in, accompanied by my wife, my children, and my human pet, whose genitals are covered as it enters on all fours and is wearing underpants. My family and I then make an order of our own at the table next to you. In what way have we infringed upon your freedom? What rational basis do you have to demand that we leave our beloved pet at home? Heck it all. Let's consider a more extreme scenario. It's 5 to 10 years from now. You're sitting in a restaurant enjoying a lovely meal when I walk in without my wife and children. For whatever reason, they haven't accompanied me, with my surgically modified human pet, wearing a collar, being led in by its leash. My pet has been spayed/neutered, though you can't tell because its genitals along with its boobies if it's a female have been covered up. It has no vocal cords, and it walks on all fours not by choice, but because its toes have been removed, along with the tendons in its ankles being severed. It may also have its thumbs and last 2 segments of each finger amputated, making it easier to care for, no fingernails to trim. Perhaps I've even humanely removed its eyes, making it less independent. Even in this scenario, I haven't infringed upon your liberties. Irrationally prejudiced is precisely what you are. Ah yes, a tale not uncommon for the internet, a man divulging into extensive detail about how he'd like to mutilate another human being and treat them as if they are nothing more than a leashed animal. Shockingly, or maybe not, pet play fetishism is quite common on the internet, but you typically don't see posts like this just floating around so shamelessly on a public forum. I'm still amazed how he managed to jump from the initial cringy joke from the OP to turning the thread into a defense of his own funny bedroom quirks. Gotta say, that's not very normal. It should really go without saying that if he's not being facetious, then his genuine beliefs are morally dubious. Now personally, I believe arguing morals online is fucking dumb, because it is, but sometimes it can be interesting to sift through the unusual beliefs of some of the web's best and brightest. Someone like CyberSmith can't just take a classic, hey, this is fucked up and wrong and we shouldn't be promoting this, so allow me to attempt to dissect the moral problems with human ownership. Yes, a Ransona is going to tell you how it is. Might be time to question where your life is heading. For one, humans are far more intelligent than dogs or cats, animals that are known for being kept as obedient house pets. While yes, these animals can have quirks or personality traits, they are simply not as sophisticated as most human beings, which is why we tend to not take each other in as property outside of twisted sexual scenarios. Adding on to the last point, human ownership has only resulted in grotesque acts within human history. Owning a person like he wants to would be the same as slavery, regardless of how you cut it. even if he isn't having them perform tasks for his own gain. He desires to take a person and modify them via inhumane surgical operations to create a subservient subhuman creature. But who is CyberSmith? While I don't feel like trying to pry into his personal life, mainly because I don't want to be turned into a neutered, leashed pet, however, we do know what he looks like in the real world thanks to him sharing selfies on Twitter. He has a rather attention-grabbing physical appearance, and I don't mean that in a bad way. He appears to keep himself groomed, but he opts to present himself like a would-be stereotypical snake oil salesman, which is quite the aesthetic if I do say so myself. His facial hair is the most catching part of his face. What intrigues me is how he is so open about his fetish, while also publicly displaying his face on social media, which, professionally speaking, probably isn't a good idea. His appearance is actually one of the reasons he's gotten a bit of reignited notoriety recently. His face was posted to Twitter a short while ago and it garnered a sizable response. The OP claimed the guy in the photo looked just so jolly and friendly, but the post and the subsequent comment thread revealed who he is and what his unique interests are. The post was most likely bait to introduce people to his story, but nonetheless it brought something kinda funny to the public's attention. Anyway, getting back on track, something that makes me question the legitimacy of his supposed interest is how naive he appears to be. There's a shocking lack of self-awareness in his posts, but you probably already put two and two together. At one point, he was engaged yet again in a Twitter conversation with another online denizen of the same circles. Allow me to read it for you. It's impossible for this guy to say anything without sounding like a complete dork. He's right though. About what? Almost everything. He didn't talk about almost everything. Nonetheless, he is still right about almost everything. One need not vocalize to be right. How do you know he's right about stuff he never vocalized? He has that general aura, that pervading and consistent essence of correctness. He, for lack of better terminology, feels correct. How do you detect his correct aura? It just sort of happens. I believe the African American peoples call it vibes. My god, he certainly could have presented himself better, alongside using better word choice, but at the same time he certainly could have used far worse vernacular, so I really think we got off easy. I'm detecting a fundamental lack of humility on his part, but that could very well be part of the character that he's potentially playing. This thread leaves me wondering, is he actually playing a character for his own entertainment? Surely he wouldn't risk attaching his real face and identity to a shitposty alias for laughs, talking about things that could do irreparable damage to his public image, right? He has admitted to being on the autism spectrum, as seen in a Twitter thread discussing the finer points of traditional Catholicism and historical quotings of Templars. When pressed about his possible diagnosis of autism, he confirmed it. If he truly is on the spectrum, it could be considered a contributing factor as to why he's oversharing certain information while simultaneously linking all of it back to his own identity. The perfect man. Trad Cath girl on here. I could never die at a hospital. They just have no soul. Templar Crusader trying to hold in his guts outside of the walls of Jerusalem. Mother. I want my mother. Citation, is there any actual case of a Templar having said that? Are you autistic? Yes. Another strange thing is how he doesn't seem to understand the distinct differences in composition between honey and rice. Yes, I'm dead fucking serious. I'm not sure how this is a problem for him since he's demonstrated his familiarity with food preparation and cooking in general. You buy 20 pounds of rice at a time? Rice is as close as you can get to a non-perishable food item without actually being one. Sure, it'll expire eventually, but if you eat it regularly, that won't be an issue. Honey's better, it's non-perishable. Huh? Honey isn't a food staple, it's just a nice sweetener. Honey probably has at least as many calories per cubic centimeter as rice, maybe more. Adding on to his relatively beefy list of strange posts, he once engaged in a Twitter thread where a person had posted an image of their stomach stating that they wanted to be punched in the gut until they vomited. This is something you often hear in a crowded elevator or at family gatherings. Of course, he disagreed. Someone then recognized him and acknowledged him as the human pet guy. He refuted this as best as he could. But don't worry, he wasn't talking about putting them in a permanent coma. I'm glad he made sure to specify that. I need to get punched hard here until I puke my guts out. No, damn it, you need to be locked up for your own good. Okay, human pet guy. Come on, OP is asking people to punch him, in the stomach so she vomits. In a gentler world, OP would be safely anesthetized, neutered, amputated, padded, detoothed, and cared for by an understanding but firm software developer with a large house and lots of free time. The anesthesia would be temporary, to be clear. I'm not suggesting a permanent coma. All in all, he seems to be harmless. I really doubt he's ever going to harm anybody or force someone to mutilate their body to satiate his weird boner preferences. But then again, he may just be an elaborate troll, which is what I'm hoping is actually the case. While he doesn't pose an immediate threat or really do too much that is interesting beyond his avocations, he seems to be mostly normal. He gets in dumb arguments online, but who doesn't? Either way, regardless if he's being facetious or truthful, he's definitely a noteworthy stop in the long and vast history of the World Wide Web. Here's hoping the internet never changes, even though we know it will. But that's going to be it for today's video. If you like what I do, leave a comment, rate, and subscribe. If you want to support me in a more personal way, you can check out the Patreon link and the Teespring link in the description. I've got more content coming down the pipeline. But until then, I'll see you degenerates next time.